Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views on myself, Salailo Makwidire, and we're going to be having a rather interesting conversation around trade unions here in South Africa. We're going to be having a really, really wonderful conversation with Congress of South African Trade Unions Parliamentary Coordinator, Mr. Matthews Parks. And essentially, we're going to be looking at the landscape of South Africa's trade union and the significant change that could be the consolidating, the working together after long-standing divisions within organized labor sphere. And there's been conversations that are bubbling about trade unions in South Africa working together. There's been recent reports that indicate that NUMSA, the country's largest single union and a leading voice in South African Federation of Trade Unions, COSATU, is exploring talks about rejoining the Congress of Southern African Trade Unions after more than a decade apart. This comes amid broader talks about unity within the labor movement and efforts to strengthen collective influence on workers' rights, wage negotiations, and just general socio-economic policy. Analysts say a reunion could almost bolster, the influence that unions have in South Africa. And also, there's been really, really tough questions that have been raised about past disagreements over politics, over federation priorities, and just labor strategy in general. So we're going to be unpacking this concept, whether or not it could be the correct way to go about things, having South Africa's trade unions consolidate, coming together, and working for the betterment of the conditions of workers. And we're going to be doing that with Congress of South African Trade Unions Parliamentary Coordinator, Mr. Matthew Parks. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on Salam Media. Really, really appreciate you giving us the time. Looking
Good morning. Thanks for having us. Hi, good morning. Thank you for having us.
No, the pleasure is all ours. And I think we'll jump right into it. The bubbling of, this conversation around South Africa's trade unions consolidating, working together. There's been discussions or rumors that NUMSA also is looking to rejoin COSATU. Just looking at that conversation, what do you make of it? How do you analyze where we find ourselves regarding that? And if it's feasible to have South Africa's trade unions consolidate and coming together?
Well, that's the vision that COSATU was founded upon 40 years ago, of having one union per industry and having one federation for the country. And the reason why we will continue to work for that, why we'll continue to engage all unions outside of COSATU, is that workers' strength is in the unity, in the numbers. If workers have a single union elected, as opposed to a dozen, they're much more stronger. And if you have a single federation in the country, again, we're much more stronger. So I think for us, it's about how to try to unite workers and how to try things together. Because the challenges facing workers are the same. It doesn't matter the color of your t-shirt, really matters how we focus on the challenges. So, we are keen to see all unions, whether it's a NUMSA or whether it's in other federations where unions are not organized, how to bring them together and how to really try to focus on challenges facing workers, be it unemployment, be it slow economic growth, be it low wages, be it corruption, and so on.
I want to continue with the NUMSA and COSATU conversation, because I think it's a very, very interesting one. I think it was back in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, where NUMSA was expelled from COSATU. It was due to some of the political differences between the two organizations, which included stances on party alliances and support when it comes to elections. Just fast forwarding from 2014 to 2026, how have those issues evolved since then?
Well, in fact, NUMSA was expelled not because of political issues, but it was expelled because it had expanded its scope beyond the metal industry. So it expanded its scope into the mining sector, into universities, into aviation, where we have other COSATU unions. So that created a conflict which we're not able to resolve. But look, I think having said that, we've always believed, and we continue to believe, that NUMSA's home is in COSATU. We do hope that at some stage they could find their way into COSATU. We're not able to comment on negotiations yet, but at some space, we hope that this could be something that'll happen.
And what could be some of the main obstacles when it comes to unions, coming together? What are some of the obstacles that unions could face when it comes to consolidating and being a singular voice for workers in the country? Would it be, ideological differences or organizational differences, or something a bit more different that, the average person could maybe not be privy to?
No, there'll be that. It'll be like, do you unify with another union? Do you come on your own? What happens to overlapping membership, overlapping sectors? How do you work together? How do you manage some differences around politics and so forth? Human beings are complex creatures. There'll always be differences. And the challenge is how do you manage those differences? But I think for us, what's critical is that we should focus on why the workers need to unite because of the challenges they're facing. And the most effective tool for workers to be able to overcome those challenges is through unity. So yes, there'll always be issues to manage and to negotiate and find compromises on. But I think what must guide us is about how do we unite workers and how do we make sure we are more effective in challenging the difficulties that they face.
Mm, mm, mm. I want to come back to something that's also very, very important. Political party alliances. I think it has been at the core of the conversation when it comes to trade unions and who they align with. How much of this is a factor? Which union, is supporting which political party. We know COSATU traditionally has been a very, very good friend of the African National
I
Congress.
don't think it's
Yes.
oh, sorry. No, I don't think it's an unmanageable issue. I don't think it's the overwhelming issue because you have four federations in the country. So I'm sure for the ANC than other nations. But look, I mean, I think people are political animals too. Unions, by their nature, are also political beings too, because workers, every movement historically across the world has always sought to contest power in the state because the state is an effective and critical tool to improving the lives of workers, to protecting their rights, to delivering a better life, and so on. I think it is also to manage those issues. And yes, look, COSATU has an alliance with the ANC, with the South African Communist Party, going back since its formation. That's been an invaluable tool to improve workers' lives, from defeating apartheid to building a democracy to transforming the state and so forth. But not all our members support the ANC. We have members who support the DA, who support the EFF, who support the FF Plus, the IFP, across the board, because workers are not isolated creatures that reflect society's diversities, including our political beliefs. We try to encourage workers that we think it makes sense to support the ANC because of its transformation agenda and so forth. But we also, appreciate that workers join a union because they want to defend their jobs, they want to improve their wages, to improve the lives of society. And we have to always manage those contradictions. And that's part of being in a democracy. You'll never have everybody agreeing with you. And then you need to just manage those differences and seek to find ways to maximize unity. So this is nothing new, and it'll always be there.
Mm, mm, mm. And just speaking of workers, from their perspective, the perspective of the everyday worker, especially those in sectors that are facing, unemployment, issues of wage stagnation, and just job insecurity in general, what would a more united labor movement mean in practice for them?
Well, it means that workers are united in terms of respond to the issues. They have a single union which can take up their issues and try to improve their conditions. Right now, if I look at the post office, for example, you have 5 unions within a very small workforce of about 5,000 employees. The unions are fragmented, they're divided, and the party makes it more difficult for the workers to negotiate with the employer on how to defend and improve their conditions. But when you have a single union which is able to then negotiate effectively to carry workers with, that makes a huge difference. And you can see that in many, many sectors like the clothing industry and so forth. There's also challenges too. Unions need to not be complacent. They need to constantly seek to make sure they improve the lives of workers, that they effectively defend and negotiate for them, and that they keep close to those workers, report back, and so forth. So But I think for us, being united is always a major picture and a major strength.
And just in your view, what could be a spark of a broader reconfiguration of the South African labor movement and the coming together of the various trade unions, especially looking ahead of the elections or the national policy debates that are forthcoming.
Well, I mean, what must guide us is the high unemployment rate of 41%, slow economic growth rate of 1%, um, struggling public and municipal services that working class communities depend upon, high levels of poverty, of inequality, of crime and corruption. And, I think those are the things that must guide us. Elections will always happen. I mean, that's part of living in a constitutional democracy. Politics will always be there. But I think the burning issues for any worker, be it in Manenberg, be it in KwaMashu, be it in
Mm,
Chatsworth, is about, can you protect my job? Can my working conditions improve? Can I earn a living wage? Can my children have a better life than me? And so I think for us, that's what must guide us. The politics will always be there. Democracies are noisy. We'll have many political parties, different views. But I think for us, it's about improving workers' lives, and being united within a single union, single federation, is a major tool in that front.
mm. Is there an appetite though from the other trade unions? Is this conversation one that looks like a possibility from their perspective?
Yes, it is. I think across COSATU, all unions are keen on this approach. Our membership, our delegates at different congresses have raised it, and I think for us it's about trying to resolve the issues that might divide us and keep us in separate organizations, and see how to overcome those.
All right, there you have it, Mr. Matthew Parks. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you for having us.
There you go. That was Congress of South African Trade Unions Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks giving us insight on a really interesting conversation around labor movements in the country, exploring a pathway towards unity. And I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not that discussion, that conversation around NUMSA and COSATU and other similar organizations almost consolidating and coming together for the betterment of workers in the country. It'll be interesting times. Looking forward to it if it does happen. And according to Matthew Parks, it looks like there's an appetite from other labor movements, organizations to see it as a possibility. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views continues after this.